Okay, start. Yeah, again. Great.
That's your show.
Cool. So, thank you all. Awesome. Great stuff in the dome today. That was very cool.
What happened?
Clear this out. We'll look at that later.
Yeah, just
So,
happened.
yesterday a lot of you were at the 101 session. And today we're going to we kind of have two sessions on this basic side. The first one on the included profiles, and then the second one on making your own profiles. So I'm actually just going to be showing a few of the included profiles, in particular these four. And I was thinking about how to talk about the profiles and what I was going to say and how, what different things I was going to show. And, I started to think about which ones would be good to show and which ones I thought people were using and not using. And then I just thought about, what, for those of you who don't know about the profiles that we have, and, there's a whole list of them. But each one is a totally different amount of things and a totally different amount of completeness and a totally different set of items. And so there isn't actually the profile is going to have this, 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 and this. And so I thought to myself, how people are generally using the profiles is probably the best way for me to start and talk about it, rather than how maybe you might be able to do different things in the future or different stuff. And so basically I thought to show these ones in particular, because these are ones that I use and have. And the thing about the included profiles that I would say is the most poignant is that, we, as the open space development team, want to give you everything you can to do any show you want. But probably we are the people who least want to tell you exactly what show to do. And so the more that we would put into the profiles to customize them, the more we would be making the profile into a particular show, which is what you're going to see that we're going to do in the next workshop. And so the thing I wanted to get across and say is that I use our built-in profiles all the time, but I use them as starting off points for my own custom profiles and shows. So right now we're going to talk about the Asteroids profile to start with. And what I would say is the asteroid profile just contains all of our asteroid data sets. It's not really, you're going to see it doesn't have a lot of things that the Apollo profile does in terms of giving a full show and presentation. But I use it all the time as my starting place when I am going to actually make a profile that includes asteroids or wants to talk about the asteroids. So I just wanted to get that across. Same thing goes with JWST. Right? If I'm going to do a program that involves JWST, I'm using our JWST profile and kind of then customizing it later. So they're often a big starting point. That being said, we're going to use the ones that exist, and we're going to be able to see that we could do a lot. So we're going to start with the Asteroids profile, which I have loaded up here, but I will show you how to launch it. I want everyone to launch it, and it's going to take a minute to start up when you launch it. So basically, when you're at OpenSpace here, instead of picking default from the first drop-down, you're going to pick Asteroids from the first drop-down, and then just hit start. Now, if you were on your own computers or domes at home, it would download all of the asteroid files. But I preloaded all the asteroid files on all these laptops. So I guess I forgot to mention that for the people who have their own laptops, I should have grabbed my thumb drive, because this is really mostly going to, if you have your own laptop, you might want to switch to one of our existing laptops, because it's going to take you too long to download the files, and you're not really going to be able to follow along. So feel free to download the files and use your own, but basically a really important thing to know about a profile is the first time that you launch a profile, if you have never used it before, it will download all of the files needed for that profile. The second time it will not. The reason that we do this is so that, right now already, when you just download the main OpenSpace build with the default profile at 7 gigs, and people already complain that that's too big, and that to me that's not even that big. But then if we were to include all of the profiles, it would be like 100 gigabyte download or something, and then if they're complaining about 7, they're really, nobody's going to do 100. So how it works is each profile will download it the first time, and then you have them forever. Okay, so while people are getting it started and going, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the profile. The way I've kind of set this up as the intros is I'll have this sheet kind of describing a few things, and then we'll show it. So first off is listing like what assets are in the profile. So in this case, this profile actually just like contains 2 folders of assets. So basically we have these 2 folders in the solar system, one that is SSSB, which stands for Solar System Small Bodies. That's an acronym that's coming from JPL Horizons. And then this other one, which I always thought was really funny, is Solar System Interstellar. I just thought it was funny because it's like, wait, is it? Make up your mind. But it's interstellar objects that have entered our solar system. And so these are the items that are in our asteroids. So basically it's those 2, Borisov and Oumuamua, and all of the asteroids that come from horizons. Settings of the profile. There are no actions in the profile, and the only settings is that the asteroids are turned off. The profile says start with them turned off. If you were to include one of these asteroid data sets in your profile, it would start turned on. Then the special considerations. Oh, sorry. This computer you have is the one that you have to run as administrator in order to get OpenSpace to work. So basically, the 2 things I wanted to say about this profile, in particular, special considerations. One is the main belt asteroid is like tuned down for performance, so it doesn't show all of the asteroids in there, which you can turn back on. And then different data sets have different settings, and so we're going to show and talk a little bit about that. Okay, so now I'm showing the asteroid profile. You might notice it also has a different starting position. So instead of starting looking at Earth, we're starting showing the whole solar system so that we can look at the asteroids. So in here, under solar system small bodies, we're going to find our groups of asteroids, and we can just do our little checkbox to turn them on. Right? Now, you're going to see we have color-coded the asteroids by their different groups so that you can see the different groups, and so that it's easier to distinguish them. These different groupings are all the groupings that, as I mentioned, this JPL Horizons, that they group these all into, right? So all these asteroids are out there, and how do they group them? But they group them by their different properties of where they live or whose orbits they cross. And I'm fairly certain in the info. So in the it's on the documentation page. We have a description of all of these. Those descriptions come from JPL Horizons, the groups for the basically, but it's like based on the orbits and stuff. So essentially, it's up to you to then create what presentation are you going to do with the asteroids? What are you going to talk about? And so, like I said, we don't even have any asteroid-specific actions for you in this profile. So this is a really basic profile, but I wanted to show it as that way of, I still use it to just either talk about all the asteroids, because they're all just there right away, or I use it as a starting place. Since we have all the asteroids up, and one of the things I'll say now, this is something about the asteroid data sets and not specific to the profile. So this, what I'm going to say here, would apply even to the, even if you were to include these asteroid data sets in your own profile. So you might see that some of them, in this case, some of the trails look less round than some of the orbits, right? You've got a little bit of squareness here, And that's basically just we've done that for the performance. So this particular trans-Neptunian data set, which is the Kuiper belt, costs a lot to render. If you see, I'm rendering at 34 FPS, and that's even with that trail being a little bit square, there's this quality that you can change and lower, and based on the performance of your computer, now I lowered it more, but you can see I'm at 72 FPS. So literally double the FPS, I have a little more squareness on these trails. And vice versa, if you crank it up, then you get less FPS but more. Right? So if you are looking at a particular, it's really mainly for the ones that have longer periods. The ones that have like shorter periods, it's not such a big deal. So the main asteroid belt, we actually are just changing the amount of them, but not the quality is less important. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about this asteroids profile before I move on to some of the more complex and powerful?
Just a question. So you preloaded these. You recommend to do that? I mean, because you don't always have a perfect connection with the so is it the way to preload before you?
Yes. So the question was if you don't have a good connection to the internet. So yeah, for sure you need to run the profile first in a place where you have a good connection to the internet, and then you can take the laptop or computer to and do your show where you don't have a good connection. But if you try to run the profile the first time ever in a place with bad internet connection, you're going to be sitting waiting for 2 hours and you're not going to be able to do a show.
But if you were going to use, say, 2 different profiles. Preload.
Yeah, so if you want, you can use 2 different profiles, like within the day when you're at your site with no internet connection, you just must have loaded them first individually, like, 2 days ago when you were at your office with the internet. Yeah, then you could be at your place with no internet and do 10 different profiles.
Do you have to do actually an action to make it save the data, or just?
No, once you run the profile once, the data's on your computer for good. Yeah.
Is the interstellar objects in here?
Oh, yeah.
And secondly, then I see interstellar. And if you want to add a third interstellar object, there won't be that now.
Then you'd have to be in the other workshop. That's what they're showing in the other workshop. How to add trajectories for objects. But they're recording it, see, I believe. Or if they're not, we'll do another one showing how to do it.
That's what I want to know.
Is there like a date updated indicator somewhere to say like if the profile isn't updated or if there's like a data set that's been updated recently as part of this?
Great question. The question was, how do we know when the profiles were updated, and then in particular, even the data sets themselves? So what I would say is that those would be independent, because the profile may contain the data sets, but then we have the data sets for other reasons or other profiles, or you might include them. So definitely data sets separate from profiles. They each could have their own thing. We don't actually have like a mechanism around that to tell you what date when the data sets were updated. Sometimes we're telling that in the release notes, but like for example, the exoplanet data set, we update that every release from NASA's Exoplanet Archive, and you just have to like look at the GitHub to see what date we updated it. We don't actually have a mechanism to show you what date. There's a mechanism for you to update it yourself, but yeah, so it's a great question. Like same with these are, we get these from JPL Horizons, but we only update it for you once a year. So in the middle of the year, there might have been thousands, especially now with Rubin, of new asteroids discovered. And so, great question. Here's that info that I was talking about. Under the info of like the about the like this group is. So this is like the Apollo group. Oh, I thought it said the semi-major axis of the asteroids, but we do have that on the documentation. Okay, last chance about the asteroids. Okay, so now we're going to switch over to the Apollo profile. Now this one has way more to it and is way cooler, and is maybe like one of our most like profiles that has the most stuff into it. So it's we used to just be under Apollo, and now it's under Missions Apollo. And then we're going to hit start. And while it's loading up, and while you guys are getting it all loaded, I'm going to talk about it. So as you can see, this one has a lot more individual assets. The other one I just said is 2 folders. It's the Interstellar and the Asteroids. So this one has Apollo 8, Apollo 11, Apollo 17, and then this LEM flipbook, Insignias map, and mission, which I'll explain what those things are, because obviously just the name doesn't do it. then settings and actions. So this one has a lot of different settings and actions. So it's setting the allow you to get closer to 3D models than you can normally. It's got actions for going to the Earthrise moment, for going to the Apollo 11 landing, for setting up the Apollo 17 landing site. It's got some actions to show the cool landing sites from a zoomed out view, like I have all the way on the right. And then, like when it comes to like special considerations, I put like 4 here, but there's really 2 that are really important, which is like when switching between the Apollo 11 and Apollo 17 site, you have to run this other action that says like disable the site because the height maps on the moon conflict with each other. And so if you like go to Apollo 11 and then you go to do the Apollo 17, like the mountains for Apollo 17 might be missing, and you're like, what's going on? Why is the mountains for Apollo 17 missing? It's because the Apollo 11 height map is messing with the Apollo 17 height map. And then the other thing that you'll see when you go to Apollo 17, I wrote, generally want to turn off A17 day of lighting map. So we have this cool geologic traverse map for Apollo 17, but then we also have this like strip of it that is like most accurate to the way the lighting conditions from when they were there that's laid on top, and sometimes people want to turn that off.
To switch profiles, do you have to close and reopen?
Great question. Yes, I should have mentioned that. To switch profiles, you have to close and reopen. Yes. So you must quit OpenSpace, your Asteroids profile, then select Apollo, and then switch.
What's the difference in drop down between the first Apollo one and then the mission/Apollo? Very different.
Well, there actually should only be one of them. There shouldn't be 2. If yours has, like, you see mine just has, if yours has Apollo and Missions Apollo, that's a mistake somehow. What version are you using there?
The new one.
Okay.
I did the light update. I wonder if that's what it did.
Maybe. I'd have to check. But as you can see, there should just be, you should go for Missions Apollo. Okay. Great. So now we're looking at, I have the Apollo profile loaded. And it starts with the Apollo 8 mission and being able to launch it and watch the Apollo 8 launch. And the thing is that, let me maximize us. So, I just wanted to say, I said I'd mention what these other things are: mission, insignia, map, victim. So the first thing is the mission. So we have this thing called the mission panel in OpenSpace, which is a type of panel that you can get. You see this little rocket ship down here. Certain profiles can include a mission panel, and certain profiles don't include a mission panel. So this is one of the profiles that does include the mission panel. So if you include the mission panel, it's giving you like a bit of information about the missions. It's trying to like surface for you some of the actions that you would use in the mission, and then it's giving you like a little timeline of events and stuff. So you can see we have on this phase Apollo 11 flight, we have Apollo 15 flight, we have Apollo 17, and we even have something down here for Apollo 8. And first image of Earth. Right? So you have like phases in the mission. You can have phases which represent like a span of time, Apollo 11 flight, Wednesday, July 16th to Thursday, July 24th. And then if I zoom in, you can have these milestones which represent a specific moment, right? So this is representing the landing, and if we look at like the Apollo 8 one, right, it's Apollo 8's whole flight, so it goes around the moon and everything, versus the particular Earthrise moment. Okay, so what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to skip the Apollo 8 launch, because we don't actually show a launch, I should say. We just have the trajectory data from after it leaves Earth. So it's not like we have this cool, awesome launch. It's just a trajectory data from after it leaves Earth and flies to the moon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the amazing Earthrise moment, special Earthrise moment. So I've opened the action panel here, and we're going to see that this profile has included actions for us. And they're under missions, Apollo. Now, the reason that these actions are under missions Apollo and not just like right here for you, as they were in the mission panel, is that these actions are coming from the assets that we have included in this profile. And so if you were to include these assets in your profile, you would get the actions as well. And so you might make your own profile that includes Apollo and it includes New Horizons. So then you have this folder and you have missions, Apollo, and New Horizons. So we have to I know it might seem annoying to drill down into these extra folders to find the actions, but we do that so that way when you wind up combining them yourselves, it's not just like a whole splattering. Of course, there is the search. So I want to search Earthrise. I can just search Earthrise, and I don't actually have to drill down to the folders. But in this case, since I was trying to show it, I would go to Missions, Apollo 8, and I would say set Earthrise time. Now, this is actually, it's a question, one second. I just wanted to note, this is a poorly named action by me because it says set Earthrise time, but it also, and then also poorly described action to me because it says jump to right before the Earthrise photo. It does more than set the time. It actually jumps you to right outside of the ship, looking above the moon, ready for the Earthrise. So I should probably rename the action to jump to Earthrise moment instead of set Earthrise time. Question.
So do the actions here translate to show composer in any way? Could you do something where you could?
Yeah, great question. So the question was, do these actions translate to show composer? Yes, right? And so the one thing that we saw was oh, well, we have these actions we've already made and buttons in the actions panel. We don't want people to have to remake them in the show composer. So one of the component types of the show composer is just trigger an existing action. And then you get a drop down where you get to search, just like this search, for these same exact actions. And then your button on the show composer would say set Earthrise time, and you could update that title yourself and make it more descriptive, like I should.
And you can import the actions into the show composer that way.
It automatically finds the one. Yeah. So when you have the show composer open,
turn that into a page, right? Like the buttons.
Yes. You would just hit new action button, pick set Earthrise time, new action button, and set launch time.
You have to be in that profile for this action button to be on your show composer?
You would, the question was, would you have to be running this profile in order to be able to find this action in the show composer? And the answer is yes, with just a slight caveat of you would have to be running this profile or another profile like your own custom one that also included the app Earthrise mode. But yes, it would, the show composer only finds the actions for the run. It finds them from OpenSpace. It asks OpenSpace what actions are available, and OpenSpace says, here's all the actions available. So if you're running the show composer with one profile open and running it with a different profile open, you're going to get different actions available in that drop-down list. That's a very good question.
But then if the profile is not running and the action was something that it's not in the profile that's currently in, will it not work?
Well, so great question. Of course, yes, the action would not work because if you were in the Apollo profile and you had a button that said, trigger New Horizons image projection, and you press that button, OpenSpace would just say a warning, I don't know what New Horizons image projection is, and because it's in the Apollo profile. For the buttons that affect things that are not in the profile, those buttons do check. If you were to change the Apollo 11 trail color and have a button for that checks to see if it's available. So if you launch it in a different profile, but I don't know that the actions check to see if they're available. I just haven't tested that. Any questions? And then now I'm going to press the Earthrise time, and we're going to go see it. So there we go. As I said, it didn't just set the time, but it really dumped me there. So I do want to update that. Now, I don't have that amazing movie thing that Carter put in, so we're not going to fly in and see it with the guy taking the thing. But I plan to get that and give it to you all if possible. So coming, maybe next year around this time, I might say, and we're going to fly in and look at the video thing of the guy inside. We'll see. Basically, it starts us about like 1 minute before the Earthrise to like give you some time so that it's not just like you press the button and instantly Earth is rising. You want to do like a little setup of it's cool or whatever. You could adjust that action if you wanted to make it like not take a minute. One of the things about this one is like so sometimes I just like speed it up a little, 5x. There's the Earthrise happening. The important thing that enabled us to do this moment is we always knew the Earthrise time, but we received from one of these other NASA guys the orientation of the spaceship for these particular moments that makes it up so you could like line up the windows and stuff like that. So what I should mention is that if you play this one for too long, you're going to see the capsule like flips upside down or something, because that's when we like run out of the information. Maybe we could find a way to set it up to not flip upside down, but you're going to see like, oh, there it is. So you either got to like know when it is and stop it before that, or just explain that one. But basically, it's an interesting thing because it's literally, we only have the data for those few moments because it was, I'm sorry, I don't know.
You have 30 minutes.
Okay, I thought you said 5, 0, I just couldn't see your numbers. Okay, so we just have like 2 minutes of that information. And so it was like recreated, and you could talk about, well, they didn't have GPS on the Apollo thing back then, right? They didn't record the angle of, like, this was like recreated from video footage or something, the angle of the spaceship. Okay, so now let's go to Apollo 11. Yeah, and it's rotating too. Yeah, it's got that rotation too. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to look at Apollo 11. So, one thing I should say is that before you trigger the Apollo 11 and 17 actions, you generally want to zoom out to the moon, zoom out a little bit because it changes the time. And so when you change the time, it like jumps you. So I usually zoom out first. And then I'm going to go to my Apollo 11 and say set up Apollo 11 landing site. Oh, and apparently my jump was much farther than I thought there. Maybe I was zoomed to the wrong side. So now we're at Apollo 11, and we have turned on a couple trails here that came on. So in blue, you have the CSM, the Command and Service Module, and in green, you have like the LM, and you can go back in time and follow along as they like separate. But that really just like takes forever. So we're going to zoom in. You might notice that I'm just zooming in right to the landing site. I don't even have to find it, because when I press that action, my focus has changed from the moon right to Apollo 11 lunar landing. So I'm just like ready to go right there, and I'm just zooming right in. And then now here I am down at Apollo 11 landing, and I'm looking at the trail here. You can see the trajectory, and you can see the little dude coming out of it. This is the 3D model Carter made by taking 2,000 photos down at the Smithsonian. And he was like talking about that guy, I think, earlier. Here you can see we have this super high resolution height map to get the craters and stuff like that, but you can even kind of see off to the right that thing I was mentioning with the interference. The cool thing about this one is I'm just going to go back in time like a minute or two. That was an hour, a minute. I've been talking for a minute. Okay. Oh, maybe too many minutes there. Okay. Again, we only have the landing data for a certain amount of time. The orientation, if you saw it, flip back there for a second. But we have this real orientation data also recreated from the footage by those like super Apollo expert guys. This is where there's too many craters and boulders where he's not going to land and stuff. And so like we've done this before where we sync it up with the audio. You just like get the audio file on YouTube and you just pick the date, like you set the minute and date to wherever you're going to start the audio from, and you just hit play. And it goes right along to where he's trying to land, and I mean, it goes right along to when he touches down. So it's pretty awesome. You can pause it and move around and look at it and talk about it and get different angles. Then the little guy pops out at the end. Okay. Now, this, I'm going to just skip ahead a minute and I'm going to super quick talk about this LEM flipbook thing. So the LEM flipbook is like kind of cool. It's not as amazing, but it's kind of neat. But if we saw in my special considerations, I said it has to be preloaded before you can use it. Oh, I hit previous. Next. Okay. So you see there, as I preload, as I do it, it's like loading up the images, and they kind of load in or whatever. But once you've kind of clicked through them, then when you go back, it's smoother. So you can kind of preload it there. And so what we have is different sun angles of the photos from different sun angles. And so it shows you how the stuff is still there on the surface and you can see the shadows of it. And so these are different, just like photos of the same site taken at different times of the day by LRO. And so that's what this next and previous flipbook thing is. It's a little weird and a little wonky, but it's there, and if you want to, I've used it in a couple different programs. So now I'm going to go for Apollo 17, and remember this thing I said about in between, disable Apollo sites. So if I just went to 17 and set up Apollo 17 landing site, it would be wonky when I went there. So I'm going to go and I'm going to press disable Apollo sites, and then I'm going to go to 17 and I'm going to say set up for 17 landing. Now, I'm on the other side of here because of the time change. So the moon had changed its phase because it's years later. So now we're going down to Apollo 17 landing, and we've set up the site for you here with all these different globe-browsing moon layers. But as I mentioned, you may want to turn off this one. People are often wanting to turn on this one. So I'm going to search moon. I'll pop this guy out in our new GUI here. And I'll go to my layers, and I'm going to turn off this LRO NAC, Apollo 17, NAC standing for Narrow Angle Camera. So now we're looking at the Apollo traverse. If we zoom in, basically we have two map layers on top of each other here. The traverse map and then the LEM inset. If you wanted, you could turn off that LEM inset too and have more of the traverse map, but the LEM inset is pretty cool because you can really see their tracks and everything like that and all the stuff they did. But the traverse map is really neat and awesome as well. And then there's also these station maps to see the things that they went to. So you could focus on the moon and go visit Station 3 if you wanted to talk about some particular event they did. Okay, so there's maybe just one or two more things I could show for the Apollo, but in the interest of time, I'm going to move to the next unless people have some questions about the Apollo.
You ever going to do Apollo 15?
Yeah, so I think that the Apollo 15, it only has the orbit of it. So, and I actually did not think it was in the profile. Yeah, it's not in the profile. So we do have a file that just represents the orbit of Apollo 15, but we didn't include it in this profile because it's not that great, and it just says the orbit, and we were not using it to talk about the orbit. But we do have this, if you want to talk about the orbit.
No, but it's in US grill, and it's some really pretty pictures, right?
Yes, there are some really pretty pictures right in front of the grill. You could include that in your presentation. The last thing I will show is these the Apollo landing labels. So that's show Apollo landing labels. Now you can see it's at the phase for Apollo 17. So there we go, and here's that Apollo 15 landing site that Claire was talking about. So those are pretty fun and neat. Okay. So we got to cover all the pictures and the special considerations and stuff. Okay, great. Now we're going to talk about the JWST one. So basically what you want to do is quit OpenSpace, as we mentioned. Then you go to missions JWST. As that's loading up and going, this one also has a bunch of special considerations, but it has some cool things for you to use. So, what is included in it? JWST, trails, time-lapse, toggle trail, targets, Lagrange points, HDF. So, what's in there? The model of the ship, the trails for the ship, a time-lapse of the ship unfolding and going out to the Lagrange point, which I'll talk about. Toggle trail. I mentioned this because it's a special thing that's not in many other profiles called an event. That is like when, you might have seen when you go, like, when you get to Earth, then you want to turn off Earth's trail. So we have this events thing that can do that for you. So in this case, the person who made this profile made a thing that when you fly up to the JWST spaceship, the trail turns off. I really wanted to mention that because what if you were not expecting that? You'd be like, oh my God, how come the trail keeps going away? Well, that's because there's this toggle trail asset event that's doing that on purpose for you. Targets is like some slides because we had made this profile before JWST even reached its place or took its pictures, so those were going to be like example pictures from Hubble, and then the Lagrange points. So we have some settings around the Lagrange points, around the field of view I'll show, and around the time-lapse. And then some special considerations is the profile set up for the launch and the unfolding with the time-lapse. But like really super important is if you activate and run the time-lapse, then you either have to let it complete, which is 5 minutes, or make sure that you press the deactivate time-lapse button. Because the time-lapse is controlling the rate of time. It plays that whole month that it unfolded at over 5 minutes. And it says, oh, at this point we're going to go 2 hours per second, at this point we're going to go 5 minutes per second. We really curated that to let people see the unfolding of the ship. But if you forget to clear it, then you're going to be at the moon doing something, and all of a sudden time's going to speed up. And you're like, what the heck? So the other thing that's important to note, and this goes back to the question about when do we update the data sets. So this one we did not update this year. So the trails for JWST are actually going only up to January 2024. If you went to now, the trail would disappear because we did not update the data to include future data for JWST, which in the next update we'll try to get it to 2030 or 35. Okay, so now let's show and talk a little bit about it. So now I'm at the JWST profile, and you can see I've got the timeline here, right? And the timeline has these different events of the milestones and the different phases that we were talking about. And, some of them have some names, and some of them have descriptions, and, arrival at L2 and what is L2 and the description. We are getting these from the NASA webpage, which doesn't actually exist anymore, but it's we did not write this. We just got this from this web L2, which is now gone. So, sorry about that. But as you can see, the telescope is all folded up. But if we look at our actions for JWST, I can say play JWST from start. And now I'm pressing it, okay? And the thing is, now it's going, and it's folded up here. But you notice that this time speed is 5 seconds per second. If I were, you can change the time during the time lapse. I'm gonna just go ahead a couple minutes. But you see now I'm at 40 minutes per second. Now it's at 2 hours per second. Because the thing is, let's see if we see some unfolding, or if I just missed it. Sometimes a piece unfolds in 2 minutes, and sometimes a piece unfolds in 2 days. And so we could go here and watch this unfolding. There's the Earth in the background. We have there's an unfold. We're now at 1 hour per second, right? So if we were at real time watching this, it would like take forever. Now, the reality is, now that it's been out there for 2 years, maybe people don't even want to talk about the unfolding anymore, so who cares, right? So then, as I mentioned, you have to do that clear JWST time-lapse of say, oh, you know what, screw this time-lapse and launch and getting out to L2, let me just like go out there. If I went to now, it would like mess up with the thing, so I'm going to hit clear JWST and time-lapse. You'll notice that thing that said the rate of time in the corner has gone away, because we've cleared the time-lapse. Now I could just like go to now and see it, you know. Here we are, and it's already out at L2. But I'm actually going to go back in time a little bit, maybe 1 year, 2 years actually, so that we have some orbits and trails, because I mentioned that it doesn't have any trails. So before I actually get to the telescope, I'm going to zoom out and see, okay, there we are. We have a label and a trail for grid. And I'm going to do this one that says toggle Lagrange points. So now we can see the L1 and the L2 Lagrange points. We've got L4 and L5. For some reason, NASA didn't have a file for L3. The file, like we got these files from NASA, and it only contained L1, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 4, and 5, like just fueling conspiracy theorists thought about this like secret Earth on the other side of the sun. I'm like, you guys are not helping by like not including that one where people think there's a secret Earth. So I'm gonna have to ask about that. But we could turn those off and then do this toggle L2 small label and line, because L2 is really the important one, and showing this L2 Earth-Moon system thing, right? So even though it's already out there, that's still an important part of JWST, and that is something you do want to talk about is where is it, right? And so that's what you've got there. Okay, and so, you know, we could, if I like, maybe I want to focus on L2, and then I can like watch JWST orbiting around it. And then maybe you want to use the anchor and aim and anchor on Earth. It's up to you how you plan to show or look. So, JWST, we're going to go there. So did you see how the trail disappeared? That's that toggle trail event I was talking about. Whereas like when you go to the ISS, I should probably add one of those for the ISS. When you go to the ISS, it doesn't disappear. And then it's all shaken, and then you got to turn off the stupid ISS trail. So someone remind me to add toggle trail for the ISS. Okay, so now we're looking at the telescope. We've got this nice model. We do plan to update the model sometime with the model that, with like a simplified version of the model that they made for our recent space show. But we just have to like get the guy to simplify it for us still. But the cool thing that we can do here is we can say this toggle field of view and viewing band. So now basically we're seeing the field of view projected as this like FOV thing that we have, shooting off into space where it's looking. And then we have this safe viewing band, which is like, if you know about it, it's like because of its sun shield, it can only look at certain points at certain times, right? So as you like change the day, you're going to see that part moves across the sky. So that's like where it can look in particular days. Now, I don't actually have time in this to explain how to use our sky browser feature, which is part of all profiles, not just the JWST profile, but I would be crazy not to mention that the JWST profile does work great with the sky browser feature. To just show that real quick, which is that if you have JWST profile running and you're using the sky browser, there is this like setting that says point spacecraft for the sky browser. So that way, when I go and tell it to look at something, it will also have JWST look at that thing. And so basically you can do this cool thing where I didn't want the applied role move to, but here we go. Yeah. So you can like have the spacecraft also point to the thing. So I don't really have a whole, like I could spend a whole hour just showing how to use Sky Browser, but I wanted to get that point spacecraft. Do we have a question? Yeah. Okay, questions for JWST?
When you're taking off the time lapse,
Yes.
Would that be the same as like hitting one? Or
No, that's exactly so. That's the really important thing. He said when I'm clearing the time lapse, can I just go to real time and have that do it? But no, because you could go to real time, but then once the date progresses ahead to the next date where our time lapse said, oh, at this date it's supposed to go 5 hours per second. So you could hit 1, it would seem like everything's normal, and then in 4 minutes, all of a sudden things would zoom fast. And you'd be like, what's going on? And it was because the time lapse controls how the way the time lapse works. It says like, ooh, on October 11th at 3:57 p.m. go 1 minute per second, and then when I'm at October 11th at 8:57 p.m. go 5 minutes per second, and when I'm October 12th go 1 hour per second. And so you could just hit 1, you'd go to real time, but then it would like pick up again and mess you up. We have other JWST questions.
I have a more general question.
Okay, yeah.
Is putting the mission timeline on the roadmap for show compose, is that something that's available, like actions on?
No. Like you want to have the mission timeline show up there?
Or even like the text, like the rich text, being able to add it in, that's
Well, you can copy and paste it.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
but
all.
there is no like import text from mission panel. Yes. Cool. Okay. If no more JWST questions, I had one other I was going to show, which was New Horizons. Cool. So again, you have to quit OpenSpace and then launch and pick missions New Horizons. For those of you wondering, why is it that I quit OpenSpace in between? Why do I have to do that? Well, it's twofold. One is the loading time. If we included all these, like each profile takes a different amount of time to load. So if you included all of that stuff for you every time you used OpenSpace, every time you used OpenSpace, you'd have to wait 14 minutes for it to start up. So nobody wants that, and that, the second thing is nobody's graphics card has enough memory to use it all anyway. So that's why we have these profiles set up. You know that when you run the profile, you're going to have enough memory and enough things. So basically the idea for you, if you want to like include a profile that has a lot more stuff, you have to do that, and you can include as much stuff as the memory on your system can handle. And then if you include too much stuff, OpenSpace won't start up, and you're like, oh, I put in too much stuff, but your system might be way different than your system, might be way different than your system. So this laptop, maybe I could combine 7 different profiles, but another laptop could only provide 2.
You're saying that if you add what you just said, you add too much, it really, something chokes. I thought it didn't choke until you press the button to make that visible.
So basically, if you add too many things into the profile, then when you hit start, OpenSpace won't even start up because there's too much. You try to use too much memory that's not even available on your system, so you wouldn't even get to see OpenSpace ever.
Mine has 32 gig. Okay?
Oh, that's nothing. I have systems with 128 gig, and that's still not enough. Okay. And that's why we have the profile, so you can segment the data into like bits that are available that work on your machine and do a good show for you. Right? Because even the $27,000 computer that I use does not have enough memory to include all the data from NASA. It's just too much data. Okay, so now we're looking at New Horizons. What does New Horizons include? But the dashboard, the model, and then New Horizons, which is like this meta asset, which if you open, it includes a couple other things. So the mission profile and some things. Settings and actions, we've got the Pluto height exaggeration, plus and minus, and then I put reset projection actions not working can be reset in menus. Generally, you don't have to reset the projections. We're going to show what the projections are and how they work. But if you did want to reset them, it still works in the normal scene menu, but for some reason the action broke for it. Special considerations. Pluto starts empty, quote unquote, but Charon doesn't. And then full color available for Pluto in color texture. So I'm going to talk about what this profile is and what it includes, and then I'll get to what I meant by Pluto starts empty. So here we are, looking at the New Horizons mission profile. It is basically just shows us the New Horizons flyby of Pluto and its imaging campaign. And so we were started at July 14th, 2015, when it was about to fly by Pluto, or during its flyby. As you can see, we have this mission phase and timeline, which goes all the way back. This is the first one where we're like starting you at the end of the mission instead of starting you at the beginning. Because there are those of you who know and recall, it's 9 years to get there, 7 years or whatever, why would we start you at the beginning while you're just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting? So we're starting you when it gets there. So here we are. We draw its trail and trajectory, in this case, much differently than we do other shits, right? Normally when we show a mission, we're drawing the trails of orbit. But in this case, it's a flyby, so we've really just drawn this short segment that's a line, right? Because it's showing how it's just doing this, like, really, it's just going shh. So normally where you'd see orbital dynamics happening with the flyby, with the trail, in this case it's just a line with the flyby. But now we're going to go up to the ship, and we're going to see the ship is cool because in addition to this 3D model, we have this cool model of the, like, instruments and the instrumentation. And this is not like a special labels feature in OpenSpace or anything. It's literally just like a second 3D model. And I do believe there might even be an action to turn those off. It's not me that was big. Oh yeah, you saw that?
To your right. Up.
Yeah, exactly. So you could turn those off if you wanted. But, if you like went into Windows and you looked, it's just a second OBJ file with all these words. It's pretty awesome. I love it. Now, as you can see here, we do have this other thing pointing out from this, the LORI, Long Range Reconnaissance Imager. So this is the camera that took the pictures, and we can see where it's pointing. It's pointing right now, I guess, at NIX or something. Yeah, it's pointing right now at NIX. But if we go back to here real quick, we're going to see one of the assets that's included is Missions New Horizons dashboard. So we've included this dashboard up here that's giving you, as the pilot, some information, the distance from New Horizons to the surface of Pluto. But way more important, I know it's really small to see, and you might not be able to see it from up here, but hopefully if you're running on your computer, you can see it, and maybe there's some ways to make it bigger. But for now, I'm not going to mess with it. I'm just going to say it says, next instrument activity, 9 minutes. So that means that this instrument, in this case, is the long-range reconnaissance imager, the one that we're seeing and showing the field of view with. And its next activity is going to be in 9 minutes. I guess kind of similar to the Earthrise thing. It was like, we didn't want to start the profile where it's just like instantly taking a picture the second you start the profile. So for some reason we chose 9 minutes before the first picture. I guess you could change that to make it 1 minute or something, because I often just open it and then I like go ahead 7 minutes, so here I'm seeing 7 minutes, 6 minutes, etc. Right? But now is maybe, now is maybe where I want to go to Pluto. So I'm going to go to Pluto. And you might notice that in the list, Pluto is called Pluto Projection instead of Pluto. That's because it's a different asset than our normal Pluto for this. If you go to Pluto normally in OpenSpace, it's just called Pluto, and it has the map of Pluto. But this is our Pluto projection, which has what's called the Mark Buoy map on it right now. So this is why I said it starts empty. I learned later this is actually a map that someone took 3 years of Hubble photos and put it together to make this map of Pluto. This is the best map of Pluto we had before New Horizons. And I thought it was just like shading that we did to make it not look like a ball. And then I found out later, no, this is the Mark Buoy map of Pluto. This is the best Pluto. Spent years putting this together, and I was like, wow. All right. Okay, cool. So this is what I meant by it starts empty, but it's not really empty. It's a cool learning thing to talk about. Why did we go by and take pictures of Pluto? Because this is, with our best space telescopes, this is the best picture we had of Pluto before sending someone there. So it really shows you the difference. People ask me, why can't I see an exoplanet? Yeah. Right? A planet that's around another star, hundreds of light years away, right? Well, it's like Pluto's in our solar system, and look at what the best thing we could see with Hubble of Pluto, you know, so forget about it, right? So, now we can actually see this box came onto my screen. What the heck is going on here, right? So, but if I kind of look back, that box is that field of view from the New Horizons long-range reconnaissance imager that I was talking about, right? So if we go back to New Horizons, we can see that, you know, we're including the, you know, the orientation information for the spacecraft and the like field of view of its camera, the focal length and stuff of its camera, so that we know like where it's looking and like what part of the surface of Pluto will the camera see, right? So this is one of my favorite things, even though it's old now. It's like I just love to show it because it's like, how do we have a map of Pluto, right? So this is like teaching us like how we build a map of Pluto, and not just that, but like putting in all the data that we have to show, well, yeah, of course it's like real, because look, here's the orientation of the thing, we know where it was, we know where it was looking, we know the shape of its camera and how its camera works and stuff, and then we know where Pluto was, and we know the rotation of the surface of the planet, etc., etc. And so then we're going to, as we zoom in and we look and we see that this field of view pans across the surface of the planet, and we see in 28 seconds, so I'll speed this up a little bit, that it's going to take our first picture. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 2, 1, boom! Here's our first picture of Pluto. And now we're going, and in 19 seconds, but I'm at 5 seconds per second, just to save us some time, we're at 5 times speed, it's taking our next picture. And so it's building our map of Pluto. And what we can do is we can speed up time and watch it go, or we could like jump ahead in time, and we're going to see like we have a lot of these pictures that it's going to take and build up, and then if we jump ahead like an hour or two, which I'll do in a second, it gets closer. So New Horizons is now closer, so the field of view takes up less space on the surface of the planet, and the pictures become higher resolution. Even though it's like the same, you know, it's not a zoom lens, we literally zoomed the ship to the planet, right? It was traveling and getting closer. So do we have some questions about the Pluto here and this, as I like let it image project, and then I'll have it come and get closer. And then I'll show one or two more things after that.
So there are all these instruments, and they're capturing the photons, and it's basically sort of a readout of what's coming off the planet, but it's not analyzed. It's just,
In this case, the instrument that we're showing is the long-range reconnaissance imager, which is their camera.
Okay.
And so we're actually showing the photos from the camera. And these are the photo, like the photos we show, we don't document them or anything. We download them from the NASA PDS, put them on top of your globe. And so these are the actual photos that it took at that time. And these are all free NASA stuff, so anyone can just go download these photos themselves if they want. And so, yeah, this is, it does have these other instruments taking other stuff, but in this case, we're just showing the photos. Any other questions about what's going on here? Okay. So I'll show one of the things that I mentioned, which is this, like, Pluto height exaggeration. You have a plus and a minus for this, right? I'll just plus it up a lot so you get to see how insane. And obviously you would not want to show this, but so you can see what is here and what's happening. You know, this looks silly, but you can see where the parts of data are and aren't when you have it like that. So if you then bring it back down, now you have a better idea of what you're looking at. So, you know, this is the real height map from them. We often, you know, there's always sliders to exaggerate the height maps. We usually try never to exaggerate them, but in this case, maybe we just thought people might want to, so we like created those. Okay. Just going ahead to some more pictures here.
Do you have any other questions on the included profiles?
Yeah, so now here we are, and maybe you could go 10 times a second here instead of 5 times, and I'll just pause it there. And so you see, like, or maybe I won't even pause it. as it does a new one, we're going to see in the low resolution go to higher resolution. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And why is that? Because New Horizons is now closer. We're now, distance from New Horizons to surface Pluto is 77,000 kilometers, whereas before it was like 120. And so, yeah, it's so cool. I love it. Now, obviously, this did happen a long time ago, but it's still cool, and it shows how, one of my favorite things I love to say, probably a lot of people have heard me say this, is like, I love to just show not just like what we know, but how we know. These days, science is so complex that people don't believe it because they don't understand how we can know it. It's part of my thought. Okay, any other?
Just one little
Yeah.
question. So those cones there,
Oh, great. Yeah, great question. The shadow cones. Yes, awesome. So, toggle shadows. Just turn those right off. So yeah, that's something that we actually don't have somewhere else. And we have included these shadows here, right? The shadow cone. This was kind of like put in there just to help you as the viewer understand the setup of the flyby and the system. Here they're telling you where the sun is, right? And then it both hides, obscures, and explains why there isn't a map on the other side, right? Because you're flying by and then it's dark and there's no light to see it. And it both creates an accent to the system, helps you orient, but also does that, right? Because there's nothing on the back, right? So, yeah. Mike, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was saying, is there an atmosphere layer?
I'm sorry, is there what?
An atmosphere layer?
No, there is not an atmosphere layer for Pluto. I do recall maybe that somebody at one time did work on it. Now that you say that, something maybe someone did something 6 years ago or 5 years ago or something. We certainly don't have one, but I know that James one time messed around with the Jupiter atmosphere, and sometimes someone may have tried to do a Pluto atmosphere, but I don't recall it. Yeah. Just making sure that it wasn't just in the list there, Pluto atmosphere, after I said, no, we don't have one. Okay. Basically I just had one other thing to show, which was after it was done, if you wanted in the Pluto projection, under projection, I guess you have to be an advanced user to use this setting. But if you switch to advanced user, color texture, you can just go and pick this one and pick the thing all the way at the bottom, I believe, and you get a color Pluto. Maybe it's... you have to hit clear projections, and then you can get a color Pluto. This is for when it's done, if you just want to show the whole map. Awesome. Okay, so we hit them all here. So if we have other questions, and if not, we get a couple minutes. Thank you all for engaging with these ones.
So next up in here is building custom profiles, and in the other room is we're switching it. It was the jam session to add your own assets, and instead it's going to be Ask Alex Anything. So if you have really random specific questions, that's the time. But we'll get started at 11:45.
We have a minute. You can get a drink. I can get a drink.